A template team is starting to emerge in FPL ahead of game week 1, and in today's video I'm going to reveal exactly what that team is looking like, whether some of these players are justifiably in the template team, and maybe some tweaks that managers can make to get the best out of their team. So as always, if you look forward to today's video, make sure to drop a like, aim for 200, and of course if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, taking a look at the template goalkeepers. Now, of course, managers can go off in many different directions. The most expensive goalkeepers are 5.5 and the cheapest are 4. But what looks like is happening is managers are going for the traditional 4.5 million goalkeeper alongside a 4 million goalkeeper. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've got a 4 million goalkeeper yet that is going to be the number one in their size. There were some rumours that Kinski would have an opportunity to be Spurs' number one, but again, the most recent reports suggest that they might even be loaning him out to get some guaranteed game time. So right now, based on ownership, Dubravka is the standout choice, but again, we are not owning him with the expectation of having any sort of minutes whatsoever. So this is very much just a goalkeeper that is going to sit in that bench position. But the standout goalkeeper is going to be Kelleher at 4.5 million in a third of FPL teams, which is really surprising. And I think when we first saw this announcement of him leaving Liverpool to Brentford, it was a great move because he's proven himself as a Premier League quality goalkeeper, and Brentford, really off the back of Flecken, needed somebody in their sides. However, with Thomas Frank leaving, with key players like Norgard and Mbeumo leaving, I think each day that passes, we start to doubt whether the Kelleher pick is actually going to be good or not. Now, let me put up the fixtures for teams that have the best based on the fixture difficulty rating. I've axed off some teams that just have atrocious fixtures. And as you can see, Brentford are actually top of the list. We got some nice fixtures like Sunderland in game week 3. But outside of that, even though they are top of the ticker and consistently they have okay fixtures, I also would argue, where are the clean sheets actually going to come from? Now, Forest away I think is tough. I think Villa are a better team than that of Brentford, so I'm not anticipating a clean sheet there. Sunderland, yes, I do think there is an opportunity, but then Chelsea at home, Fulham away, once again I don't see a clean sheet, and then Man United at home in game week 6 with the likes of Cunha and Mbeumo. I'm not seeing clean sheets for Kelleher. Now, of course, save points are a thing in the game and he may well accumulate saves over this period. But when I look at some of the other options available, it would take a brave person to go to Sunderland. A lot of the teams that appear on this list close to Brentford are going to be 5 million goalkeepers in the shape of Sanchez at Chelsea, for example, Trafford if he gets his move to Man City, or Vicario at Spurs. So even though I don't love the Brentford fixtures, at 4.5 million, I do understand why managers are going there, because even though the fixtures aren't great, there are some games where you might get lucky or at least accumulate saves. So Kelleher, I understand why he's the 4.5 million goalkeeper, but based on the fixtures, I wouldn't be getting excited thinking that I'm going to get 4 clean sheets in these opening 6 game weeks. And let me know in the comment section, is Kelleher one that you've chose? So take a look at the template defenders right now. And first up, I have to kind of say that, yes, I know a lot of 6 million defenders are being selected, but in order to keep to the £100 million budget, I have to build a team which is actually realistic. So we're going to go for the players that are the most selected and also what I believe is going to become template. Hopefully that makes sense. So first up, we have got one 6 million defender in Frimpong. Now again, there are loads of great 6 million options, but Frimpong is the one that is standing out right now for managers. Now, just a context of the defenders, I'm going to put up the fixtures for the teams that have been selected, because at the end of the day, defenders, it's all about the fixtures. We can't predict the attack and returns. We want the clean sheets first and foremost as our bread and butter, and then we need to obviously add the layer on top of defensive contributions. Can our players actually pick up those 10 defensive contributions to get us those 2 additional points? Frimpong, obviously a bit of an unknown into the league. We are taking risks regardless with this selection, whereas someone like a Kirkes, even though he's a new signing, we kind of know what we are getting from him as a Premier League player. So as you can tell by the tone of my voice right now, I'm not that bullish on Frimpong as a pick. When we take a look at the fixtures for Liverpool, Bournemouth in game week 1 I think is perfectly fine. Newcastle away in game week 2, if they sell Isak, then maybe that is a guaranteed clean sheet fixture. Then Arsenal in game week 3, once again tough. Then the fixtures are nice. Burnley, Everton, Crystal Palace, even though Palace away I still think is a tough game. My concern about Frimpong as a choice is that I still think Conor Bradley is a player that Arne Slot does like and will be using, whether it is a 60th minute sub or at times where maybe Frimpong is just way too offensive, needing Connor Bradley in that side just to counteract what might be on that opposition's touchline. So for me, if you're going to go Frimpong, I would rather actually go a bit safer and just pick Van Dijk. I think he's great for the defensive contributions. He'll play 90 minutes in each and every game and offers some sort of aerial threat from set pieces. I think Frimpong is a risk in that opening game week. Then we got Ola Aina at 5 million. Now, I do think Nottingham Forest, now that they've kept Gibbs White, now there's a bit more positive vibes about them, I think they're a good investment. The fixtures, Brentford at home in game week 1, West Ham at home in game week 3, Burnley in 5, Sunderland in 6. I think a Forest defender is really important for our teams. And if they do suddenly drop off, then we can change it up. I don't think it's a risk worth taking going without them. And Ola Aina is right now the standout at 5 million. Now, a lot of people are going for Murillo, Milenkovic. I do like those choices, but I think Aina or even a Neco Williams is the route to go for. I think save yourself 0.5 million and maybe go for that direction. Neco Williams is the one that is my standout personally. Then 4.5 millions are very popular. Right now we've got the combination of Wan-Bissaka and Konsa. As you can see with the fixture ticker, we could, realistically, play Wan-Bissaka in game week 1 away against Sunderland, and we could also then play Konsa in game week 2 if we think Brentford are actually not fantastic. And they don't rotate terribly alongside one another in this side. And I do think Wan-Bissaka is a nice choice with what we saw last season from an attacking perspective. I think he has elevated his game. And Konsa, while he is a centre-back, wasn't actually fantastic last year for defensive contributions. So I wouldn't be having Konsa with the thought process that you actually are going to rack up those defensive contributions. However, the fixtures, as you can see, are good for Villa long-term, and we know he is a guaranteed 90-minute man. And a lot of managers right now are going for Esteve at 4 million. Now, I think this is actually not a bad choice. I think with the structure that a lot of players are going for, they're going for 1 premium all the way down to 1 cheap and fill in the middle with 4.5s and maybe a touch of 5 million. And I do think Esteve is a nice choice, in particular for game week 2. If Burnley actually do still have some sort of defensive capability in this league, which I think isn't going to happen, Sunderland at home in game week 2 is your fixture where you are going to get that clean sheet. And with the other tricky games, you know, Van Dijk away against Newcastle, Konsa away against Brentford, even Aina away against Palace, Esteve can actually be used in this one particular game, and you might get lucky with maybe a goal, possibly, but I doubt it. But a clean sheet is what managers are hoping for there. So in terms of the defence, I do like it. I'll suggest my recommendations in a minute, but this is what the template is currently looking like from a structure perspective. Moving into the template midfielders, and this is where definitely a template is starting to emerge in FPL. Whereas the defenders, I think, is a bit more of a free-for-all in the game, I don't really think that's the case right now in midfielders. I think it's very clear what direction managers are wanting to go. And first up, Mo Salah is definitely winning the debate right now between him and Erling Haaland, with his ownership being really high right now and Haaland's only being around 16%. It's clear that managers are moving towards a Mo Salah template team as opposed to a Haaland team. And right now at 14.5 million, I know it's expensive, but with what we've seen over the last few seasons, him being on penalties, and really with all Liverpool's business that they are doing, they haven't bought anybody to actually play on the right-hand side of that front three or whatever sort of system they play. So it feels like Mo Salah is even more locked into this team, and the other players are ones that we might actually argue are slight rotation risks. So I still get the Mo Salah hype. Yes, if Isak does sign for Liverpool, which looks likely, then we have the deliberation of maybe going for Isak and not Mo Salah, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, Mo Salah is very much the template midfielder of choice, and so too Cole Palmer. It seems like managers, even though they don't want to spend loads on Salah and Haaland as a combination, they're more than happy to do the Salah and Cole Palmer combination in midfield. And it does feel like whenever I build a template team myself, or a team in general, Palmer just automatically falls into place. I think the fixtures are good enough for Chelsea long term. And what we saw in the Club World Cup, it kind of diminished any sort of concerns that managers did have of him last season. I, for one, am a Chelsea fan. I watch them every week on TV, not live. Unfortunately, I can't afford it. And Cole Palmer, when he was having those moments where he wasn't delivering points, was still playing fantastic. So I, for one, am not concerned about Cole Palmer. The only way he doesn't become an FPL option is if other players actually do step up and become better value than him, like a João Pedro, for example. Otherwise, I think Palmer is rightly so a template choice in this team. Now, moving down to some of the other price points, I think it's really important when we are building our teams that we have someone at 8.5 million. I think that is so key because we've got Florian Wirtz, who right now is the template choice. A lot of managers are going there. But we also have Marmoush at 8.5. We have also got someone like Bruno Fernandes at 9. If you were to go for Salah, Palmer, and then all the way down to a 7 or 6.5, you're leaving a really big gap between those price points, which, if a player does emerge and is essential, you might have to sell off a key player in order to upgrade one of your midfielders. And that is not an ideal position to be in, especially when we've got such fantastic pool of players right now. And I do think with Florian Wirtz, I may be on the hype train right now, but I've seen a lot of him at Bayern Leverkusen and I've seen a lot of good stuff. And I think this guy is going to be sensational at Liverpool. And I really do think he will hit the ground running. And the money that they spent on him, I think they build the team round him as opposed to drip feeding him in and out of the side. So I think Florian Wirtz is just incredible. And I do think rightly so, he is a template pick. Now, the other two choices are interesting. Morgan Rogers, even though he's had the price hike, is still being selected by a lot of managers. 7 million, I still think is great FPL value. And the important thing is that Villa have great fixtures. And with them selling off Rashford and Asensio, I just think once again it's going to go back to the traditional Villa of Watkins and Rodgers each and every week delivering points and a few points dotted around from other players. It very is predictable in that Villa team. And I think if you can get Rodgers, I would get him in your team. I think he's a fantastic pick still and a great price point because if it doesn't work out, you can then drop that down to a 5.5 million midfielder potentially and then improve in other areas. Finally, Kudus. A lot of people are jumping on this train and I do like it. The fixtures are good for Spurs. Of course, we've got that opening game against Burnley. I think that's the one that managers hope Thomas Frank hits the ground running, and so too Kudus. My only hesitation with Kudus is that Brennan Johnson, could we see some rotation where Kudus is a 60-minute man, comes off for the final part of the game, which is not ideal at all. I'd then make the argument maybe going for a player that has the chance of defensive contributions is a better choice than him. But right now with the fixtures, managers are clearly jumping on Kudus, and I totally get why. Finally, taking a look at the template forwards, and I think this is the position that is going to change the most from a template perspective because the forwards this season are becoming each and every day more exciting. Right now, we've had the announcement of Ekitike at 8.5 million for Liverpool. We've had Gyökeres announced at 9 million for Arsenal. And we have the possibility of Isak moving to Liverpool, 10.5. Sesko going to Newcastle or Man United. So watch this space with the forwards because I think this is going to be the most exciting season we have seen for FPL forwards. But right now, based at the time of recording, this is what the template is looking like. Now, it's worth noting, Isak is highly owned in the game, but I do think with the transfer rumours right now, I don't think he's a player that we should be including in our FPL drafts. On the flip side, if he gets the move to Liverpool, then all of a sudden I think he becomes almost an essential pick in our team. So it's funny how things might change. But right now, this is kind of the template front three. We got Dominic Solanke at 7.5 million. Now, yes, he is currently nursing an injury, but based on ownership, he still is being selected by a lot of managers. And I do think of what I saw with Thomas Frank over the last few seasons at Brentford, getting the best of Ivan Toney, Sade and Buemo Vissa. It's a manager that really can lift the ceiling of these players. And I think he will get the best of Dominic Solanke. But of course, any sort of injury concerns, they do have the cup final 3 days before game week 1. If Solanke doesn't feature, then you are taking him straight out of your team because there are so many great alternatives in the game. Chris Wood at 7.5 is one that I personally prefer over Dominic Solanke. He offers everything Solanke does and probably a bit more because he's on penalties. Then we got João Pedro at 7.5, the most owned forward in the game. And I do get it. A brilliant Club World Cup. And I do think he will be a Chelsea key player. But we also have to remember, Delap's still in the equation. He isn't just going to sit on the bench and play 10 minutes. He definitely will eat into the minutes of João Pedro. And with the signings of Gittins, Estevao, we got Neto, of course. There is going to be times where João Pedro will either have to play the number 9 or have to be on the bench, because if Cole Palmer is not to be played on the right-hand side all the time, he will be the main man in that 10 position. So I do like João Pedro. I think he's fantastic for the opening few game weeks, but tread carefully. I don't think the minutes are as locked in as some managers may be perceiving. And finally, Beto, of course, with the template team that we have, with the midfield powerhouses, we can't have a powerhouse front three. And that is why Beto is in this team. Now, of course, they have signed Barry, and there is a chance that we could see a huge rotation between Beto and Barry. But for the opening game weeks, with Leeds away in game week 1, I think Beto is worth a punt at 5.5 million and accommodates you to allow some of these really expensive midfielders in this team. So all in all, I really do like the template. I think it's good. Of course, it isn't necessarily catered towards a bench boost, but you could easily bench boost this team as well. I'm going to show you an alternative in a minute, some small tweaks to the team as I discuss, but I will say you could very easily change this template team and downgrade Beto to a 4.5 and invest some money elsewhere and really play with a front two. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think the template team is good, but I think some tweaks can be made. So here's a few tweaks that I would make personally to the template team. Now I've put improve, but please do take that tongue in cheek. I just think this is maybe a version that might be a bit more watertight for these opening game weeks, and a slight change in the structure, because really the player selection is perfectly fine for the template team. For example, I've kept João Pedro in, but personally I think someone like Chris Wood might be just a better choice. But what I've done here is change the actual structure of the team to show you what you can do. Now, I put Van Dijk in instead of Frimpong because I just personally think he, over the opening 6 game weeks, is a better choice than Frimpong. Guaranteed minutes and, importantly, defensive contributions will rack up much more than that of Frimpong. But what I've done here is change the structure a little bit. I have done Rodgers down to Ndai. We've then upgraded Dominic Solanke to Watkins, and we've taken the money out of Beto to allow this move. Now, of course, really on the face of it, if I said to you right now, Rodgers plus Beto plus Solanke versus Ndai, Barnes and Watkins, I think you probably would argue that maybe the first choice is actually slightly stronger. However, I think this here is a bit more longer term protecting you of what you want to do with your team. Now, of course, because we've all got double chips, you can make a wild card really early and change your team completely. But if you want to hold off on the wild card, I think the Watkins spot is really important. So with the players that we have available in the game right now, as I discussed, Isak at 10.5, Gyökeres at 9, Hugo Ekitike at 8.5. If you were to stay at Dominic Solanke at 7.5 million, you're straight away going to have to use transfers to get yourself up from him to the 9 million bracket or more to get the player of choice. Now, of course, you could do that and kickstart the season with the previous team that I showed you. But if we are anticipating straight from the bat that these 9 million forwards or 8.5s are really going to hit the ground running, I would rather just have my money invested in that position rather than after 2 weeks already having to make 2 transfers to switch out a player and upgrade in that department. So I actually think this combination is great. Yes, it doesn't cater towards a bench boost, so you wouldn't be bench boosting this team. And this could be any 4.5 million forward. But I think the defense is good enough that at times if you needed to play a 4-4-2, you could. I think Ndai longer term is a better pick than that of Beto. I think Ndai will play pretty much every game. He's on penalties and Everton's fixtures are good. So regardless, I think Ndai is a better pick. And I think Watkins is a fantastic pick. I think of all of the forwards at that price point, I would much rather start the season with Watkins, knowing that after 5 or 6 game weeks where the Villa fixtures are great consistently, then I could look to move off him to the forward of choice that really has become the one to own. If suddenly Gyökeres at Arsenal is the one, I've had 6 game weeks to analyse him, see if he is a rotation risk or not of Havertz, and then jump off Watkins. I think this team is much more stable in these opening 6 game weeks and also invested in the correct price points to allow us to pivot towards different directions if we want to. So just to round it up, I think the 4.5 million goalkeeper, perfectly fine. But of course, I do prefer someone like a Robert Sanchez over Kelleher if you can afford it. I do think you need 1 6 million defender to allow yourself to go off in different directions. After that, I don't even think a 5 million defender is essential, but it is always ideal to allow yourself to go elsewhere. 2 4.5s, there are plenty of good 4.5s good on the defensive contributions. Brave to go without Mo Salah is my first opinion. I think Palmer is locked into everybody's teams, and an 8.5 million is absolutely essential. And again, I think if you can have 2 6.5 million midfielders, it's great, but I do think there are 5.5s out there like an Anderson that can do a job. And finally, with the front three, it depends what strategy you're on with a bench boost in game week 1. But I do feel like if you can get a 9 million forward and have that as your price point, it's really important and it will benefit you in those opening game weeks. Yes, guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up today's video looking at the current game week 1 template team. As I mentioned, things are changing so fast. So many Fabrizio Romano tweets which is telling us new players are joining the league. So this will change, but I do think the actual structure will remain the same regardless. So let me know your thoughts are in the comment section. How many of those players do you own? Do you think the template team is actually different to what I showed you? And as always, if you enjoyed today's video, please do consider dropping a like and of course hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. I will see you in the next one. Take care and have a great day. Cheers.